Mayor Bowser and Chief Smith are under fire as explosive evidence reveals a massive D.C. police cover-up threatening the city's trust in law enforcement. The shocking tip arrived quietly, almost anonymously, to a small independent news outlet in Washington, D.C. The message was brief but alarming. Important evidence in multiple criminal cases had gone missing from the city's police department. At first, many dismissed it as speculation or exaggeration, but investigative reporters felt a chill run down their spines. They began reviewing publicly available records, and what they found was puzzling. Official reports listed critical items as recovered or secured, yet when requests were made to view them, they could not be found. Some evidence had vanished without explanation: guns, documents, even digital files tied to high-profile cases. The inconsistencies were subtle at first, easy to overlook, but the more the journalists dug, the clearer it became that this was no ordinary mistake. Meanwhile, a small group of independent investigators quietly launched their own inquiry. They requested access to police logs, surveillance records, and internal reports, and what they discovered painted a disturbing picture. Entire cases appeared to have been manipulated. Dates were changed, files were mysteriously altered, and in some instances, reports contradicted one another. Officers sworn to uphold the law seemed to be hiding information, intentionally or otherwise. The inconsistencies suggested not only negligence, but possibly deliberate misconduct. Word of the investigation began spreading through City Hall and the local media. Though initially under the radar, public concern began to grow. Citizens were startled to learn that crimes reported as solved might have been mishandled or even ignored entirely. The more the investigators examined the situation, the more a pattern began to emerge. Certain cases, particularly those involving wealthy or politically connected individuals, had suspiciously smooth outcomes. Evidence that should have been central to convictions was missing, and procedural errors conveniently aligned with the interests of those involved. Even small details like missing surveillance footage or deleted digital logs pointed to a larger, more organized system of deception. At the same time, journalists discovered that internal complaints within the department had been quietly buried. Whistleblowers were either silenced or ignored, creating an atmosphere where corruption could thrive without detection. As the initial shock wore off, fear and suspicion took hold across the city. Residents wondered how long this had been going on and how deep the corruption ran. The tip that had seemed minor at first had opened a door to a reality far more troubling than anyone expected. In the heart of the nation's capital, where law and order were supposed to be absolute, the foundations of trust were already beginning to crack. The stage was set for revelations that would shake the city to its core, exposing secrets that many in positions of power had hoped would remain hidden forever. As investigators delved deeper into the police department's inner workings, a disturbing web of deception began to take shape. Internal documents and emails suggested that certain officers had deliberately altered crime reports, deleted critical evidence, and manipulated witness statements to protect influential individuals. What initially appeared to be isolated mistakes now looked like part of a larger, coordinated effort to obstruct justice. Cases that should have led to arrests were inexplicably stalled or quietly closed, leaving victims and their families without answers. Each new revelation added layers of suspicion and uncertainty, painting a picture of a department where loyalty to power often outweighed the duty to uphold the law. Surveillance footage, once thought to be routine, became a key piece of the puzzle. Investigators noticed that cameras in sensitive areas had been disabled or tampered with during critical incidents. Certain logs and security recordings were missing entirely, as if they had been deliberately erased. Meanwhile, officers responsible for handling the missing evidence seemed to have connections to influential figures, raising questions about whether favoritism had influenced their decisions. The deeper the investigators looked, the more apparent it became that this was not a series of random oversights, but a deliberate pattern of concealment. At the same time, a small group of whistleblowers within the department began to emerge. Though fearful of retaliation, they provided critical information about internal practices, including instructions from higher-ups to downplay certain cases and minimize public scrutiny. These revelations suggested that the cover-up extended beyond low-level officers and into the upper ranks of leadership. Emails and internal memos hinted that some department officials were aware of the misconduct but chose to ignore it, allowing the deception to continue. The extent of the corruption began to alarm city officials, journalists, and the public alike, sparking questions about accountability and the true purpose of law enforcement in the nation's capital. The investigation also revealed a troubling pattern in case outcomes. Crimes involving wealthy or politically connected individuals were consistently resolved with minimal consequences, while less influential victims received little justice. Evidence that could have secured convictions often disappeared, and procedural errors conveniently favored certain defendants. As the story gained traction in the media, citizens grew increasingly uneasy, realizing that the system designed to protect them might have been compromised from within. The city's trust in its police force was eroding fast, and with every new document and testimony, the scope of the scandal became clearer. What had begun as a tip about missing evidence was now unraveling into a massive exposure of corruption, deceit, and betrayal, shaking the very foundations of law enforcement in Washington, D.C. As investigators kept digging, their attention started moving from the police department to the city's political leaders. It became clear that the cover-up might have reached all the way to Mayor Bowser's office. Emails and memos showed she had been told about the missing evidence and changed case files months before. Instead of taking action, the messages suggested she pushed to hide the truth and stop the public from finding out. This shocked journalists and citizens, making people wonder if the mayor had chosen politics over justice. The investigation also found worrying links between City Hall and high-ranking police officers. Some people were rewarded for keeping information secret, while others were warned not to talk. Whistleblowers, people who tried to expose wrongdoing, were silenced. Emails revealed discussions on how to control the story, handle reporters, and avoid blame. This showed the cover-up was carefully planned, not just a mistake. It made the public lose more trust in the city government. Evidence showed political pressure had affected the outcome of certain cases. Crimes involving powerful people often ended with light punishment or no punishment at all. Investigators found police reports changed to look complete, and important evidence conveniently lost, allowing certain suspects to escape justice. Many citizens felt betrayed, realizing the system they trusted was protecting the powerful instead of the public. When a whistleblower came forward with proof, the case took a major turn. The documents showed that some officers had destroyed video evidence, changed reports, and tampered with witness statements in serious cases. One shocking example was a well-known criminal who was freed because key evidence was intentionally lost. The city was stunned. What had looked like incompetence now seemed like a deliberate plan to protect criminals. The media quickly picked up the story, and it became national news. People were horrified to learn their safety had been put at risk by those meant to protect them. Protesters gathered outside City Hall demanding resignations. The documents revealed a network of police officers and political figures working together to hide the truth and protect the powerful. Experts warned that this corruption may have allowed dangerous criminals to stay free. Public anger reached its peak, with growing calls for Mayor Bowser and Chief Smith to step down. The scandal was no longer just about missing evidence, it had become a story of deep political corruption. Finally, the federal government announced an independent investigation. Washington, D.C. was left shaken, wondering how such corruption had been hidden for so long and what other secrets might still be buried. The final chapter of the scandal unfolded with a mix of confrontation, accountability, and lingering uncertainty. As the federal investigation gained momentum, the full scale of the corruption became undeniable. Officers faced charges for obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence, and deliberately misleading investigations. The documents provided by the whistleblower were central to the case, offering concrete proof of the systematic cover-up that had allowed certain individuals to evade justice. Every day brought new revelations, each one more damning than the last, and the city watched in stunned silence as the truth surfaced. Amid the legal proceedings, public pressure reached a fever pitch. Mayor Bowser and Chief Smith, once untouchable figures in D.C.'s political and law enforcement hierarchy, were forced to resign. Their departures were both symbolic and practical, signaling a rare moment of accountability in a system often criticized for protecting its own. Yet, the resignations did not erase the public's outrage or heal the sense of betrayal. Citizens, journalists, and civic organizations continued to demand transparency, hoping that new leadership could restore trust in a deeply shaken institution. The scandal had revealed not only corruption but also a fundamental weakness in oversight, prompting calls for systemic reform. Even with the top officials removed, questions remained about how deep the corruption had gone. Investigators continued to uncover additional instances of evidence tampering and case manipulation, suggesting that more officers might be implicated. Citizens wondered whether justice had truly been served or if some wrongdoers had slipped through the cracks. The city faced a difficult reckoning, learning to navigate life under a system that had failed them, while pushing for reforms to ensure that such misconduct could never happen again. The fear and uncertainty left a lasting mark, but so did the determination of those who refused to let the truth remain hidden. In the aftermath, Washington, D.C. became a cautionary tale of power, secrecy, and accountability. The scandal underscored how easily systems designed to protect the public could be corrupted from within, and how political influence could amplify wrongdoing. The city's residents were forced to confront an uncomfortable reality. The institutions they trusted were vulnerable, and oversight required vigilance, courage, and persistence. While Mayor Bowser and Chief Smith were gone, the story of their misdeeds remained a reminder that transparency and accountability are essential in any system of justice. The events would resonate for years, shaping policy, public perception, and the ongoing fight to ensure that the truth always finds its way to light.